The ancient witness is from Matthew 14:22 through 36. As soon as the meal was finished, he insisted that the disciples get in the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the people. With the crowd dispersed, he climbed the mountain so he could be by himself and pray. He stayed there alone late into the night. Meanwhile, the boat was far out to sea when the wind came up against them and they were battered by the waves. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. They were scared to death. "A ghost!" they cried out in terror. But Jesus was quick to comfort them. "Courage, it's me. Don't be afraid." Peter, suddenly bold, said, "Master, if it's really you, call me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come ahead." Jumping out of the boat, Peter walked on the water to Jesus. But when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve and started to sink. He cried, "Master, save me." Jesus didn't hesitate. He reached down and grabbed his hand. Then he said, "Faint heart, what got into you?" The two of them climbed into the boat, and the wind died down. The disciples in the boat, having watched the whole thing, worshiped Jesus, saying, "This is it. You are God's Son for sure." On return, they beached the boat at Gennesaret. When the people got wind that he was back, they sent out word through the neighborhood and rounded up all the sick, who asked for permission to touch the edge of his coat. And whoever touched him was healed.
Well, I've told you I'm kind of a note preacher or a text preacher, but I'm going to get away from the pulpit with this new opportunity to walk around a little more. So even if we aren't familiar with all the biblical narratives, we've probably heard this phrase before. He or she is so good at something that they practically walk on water, right? Well, implying that somebody is really amazing at what they do, or at least perceived as amazing at what they do. The story of Peter and Jesus and a huddled, desperate group of frightened men in the boat is where that idiom comes from. To put this story into context, we do well to consider the entire chapter 14. Could be chaptered, Jesus had one very busy day. Because in that chapter, it says there is the story of the telling of his comrade, cousin, and good friend, John the Baptist, who is executed by King Herod. And then we are told that Jesus gets word of this, and hearing this sad news of his good friend's execution, death, Jesus wants to go off and be alone and to pray. And so the story tells us he gets in a boat and he finds an isolated place to pray and to grieve. But it says the people followed him around the lakeshore because he apparently had this reputation, this rock star status by this point. And it says Jesus took pity on them and spent the rest of the day doing healing sessions. And then it says it's getting late in the day and they're all hungry. And then we get the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And so finally, the day is over. Everybody's satisfied. The crowds go home. And Jesus directs the disciples to go across the lake so he can go off again and be by himself to pray, to process, we assume, everything that's been going on that day. It says, I'll catch up with you. So then we get to the place for the story this morning. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, it says, or sometime in other versions it says sometime between 3 and 6. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It's early in the morning. A storm comes up on the lake, and the disciples in the boat are in big trouble. They are desperately rowing against the wind and presumably taking on water. And then in the midst of this struggle and fear and chaos, they see this figure walking toward them, and they shout or think it's a ghost. And Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. It's me, Jesus." Enter Peter into the scene. Peter is the disciple we know who doesn't overthink things, like most of us. He acts before he thinks, which is a plus and a minus in life. If we think too hard about things, especially things that may have negative consequences, we fail to take risks and we get frozen or stuck. If we don't think twice before we act, sometimes we get ourselves into real trouble because we didn't plan very well. So Peter yells out, "If it's you, Lord, bid me to come to you." And here we have an interesting thing happen. Jesus says simply, "Come." That's it. He could have said, "Peter, you stay there and I'll come to you." He could have said, "No, Peter, I don't think you're quite ready yet." He could have said, "This is just for special people like me. You stay in the boat, it's okay. I don't want you to drown." But none of that. Instead, Jesus says, "Okay, come." What's implied in that simple one-word invitation, come? It's implied confidence, right? Jesus has confidence in Peter. Jesus sees the potential faith and the ability of what that faith can accomplish, even if Peter doesn't see it within himself. But because Jesus sees that potential within Peter, and because Jesus knows Peter is capable, Jesus says, "Come. Do this seemingly impossible thing with me. Come, do what is extraordinary. Give it a try. You can do this." He doesn't say that, but that's implied within that in 1 or 2 word invitation. Come join me. And so Peter does. He doesn't overthink things, because if he did, he wouldn't do it. Instead, he's just inspired by Jesus. He just receives that word of confidence, looks at Jesus, and steps out of the boat. And lo and behold, he's walking on water. He's doing something impossible. And as long as he keeps his eye on the one who has confidence and is present to him, that is Jesus, he's okay. But then what happens? We know the story. The natural human response takes over. We're all vulnerable to this thing called fear. It's a reasonable fear. His rational and intellectual brain overrides his inspiration and his exuberance. It says to him, "What are you doing, Peter? You can't do this. This is impossible. It's dangerous. Look at this dark water. Look at those waves. I'm going to die. What were you thinking?" And that's when he begins to sink. He stopped being enthralled by Jesus. He stopped being inspired by Jesus, and instead his fear took over, and it's completely understandable. And as he sinks, he cries out to Jesus, "Save me, Lord." And Jesus is right there. He's not going to let Peter drown. He grabs Peter, and together they climb into the boat. And Jesus says to Peter, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt?" Now, I've always thought that this meant, "Why did you doubt me?" i.e. Jesus. But I've come to wonder lately whether it might also mean, "Why did you doubt yourself?" When it comes to confidence and the ability to step out of our comfort zone, there's a kind of synergy that takes place, it seems to me. The person who reflects confidence in us and models that confidence instills within us a confidence in ourselves. We receive self-confidence because someone or someone's expressed and modeled confidence in us. I just was listening to NPR this morning, and they were interviewing somebody and mentioned the South African word, or I guess it's South African. Anyway, African word, Ubuntu, which means apparently, because I am, you are. Because I am, you are. We are together. And we affect one another. For 4 decades, I've done small-scale carpentry and handyman work for people. And I can tell you that I do my best work when I receive confidence from my employer or my client or whoever I'm doing the work for. And when I feel appreciated, where I feel like I'm giving latitude, where I feel like I'm not micromanaged or second-guessed, I do way better work. It summons the best in me and makes me want to give my best. It's when people express the opposite, second-guessing, micromanagement, anxiety about costs, that's when I am most likely to screw up. I've learned a lesson a long time ago about this self-talk and psyching yourself down on things and its influence when I was in high school. My sophomore year, I thought it would be good to be on the high school football team. I was not a natural at this sport, but for whatever reason, needing to belong or wanting to be a part of something or of this most esteemed of sports, whatever it was, I was on that team. Anyway, our team was demonstrably lacking in the winning department. Our record was 0 wins and 10 losses. Following Mondays after Friday night disasters, our coach, his name was Coach Plagegi, would have us run extra laps, reprimand us verbally, and in short, reinforce our poor collective self-confidence. The following season, which I had regrettably signed up for again, had a number of had a similar record. 0 wins, 10 losses. Same coaching, same low esteem, same results. Come my senior year again, for an irrational reason, I do not yet know, I signed up to play again, maybe so I could tell this story this morning, who knows. We had a new coach, Coach Crum. Coach Crum pulled us in on that first day in late August, and he gave us a little pep talk. He said, there's absolutely no reason you cannot and should not be winning games. You know, and I know you have the same capabilities as any other team out there, and there's nothing special about them or about you. You're capable. You're going to win games. I believe it with my heart, and you need to believe it too. And he embodied that attitude throughout the season. And guess what happened? That season, we tied 1 and lost 9. We improved. But at least our losses were more respectable. So it wasn't such a wide margin between our score and the other teams. The following year, after I was graduated, the team had a winning season. And the following years, the team went on to play championship games. So that was cool. One other thing that needs to be noted about this little episode of my young life, I spent much of my time sitting on the bench. Not only was the team at a poor performance level, I was personally at a poor performance level. Again, it wasn't because I was inherently less coordinated or capable than average person. It was because I didn't, and in retrospect, I didn't believe in myself. My problem was mental. My fearful and reasonable brain was always telling me, I hope you don't drop the ball. not "I got this." And that makes all the difference. Or this person is going to hit hard and it's going to hurt. Not "I got this tackle and you're going down." It's that inner voice, I learned, that makes the difference. And it's the outer voices that reinforce that make the difference. I've used this illustration before, but it's relevant. It's the example of the parent who shows confidence in the child that helps shape the inner character and confidence of that child. You can do this. I have faith in you. It's okay to fail, but I really encourage you to try. Do it when you're ready, but I believe in you. These kinds of messages are critically valuable in shaping our character. And then also, the parent needs to model said confidence. Can't just talk about it, got to show it. And it may not be a parent. It may be some other significant person in your life who can do that for you, but it's important. So when Jesus says to Peter, "Your faith is so small, why did you doubt?" It's more complicated than just "why did you doubt in me?" It's also "why did you stop believing in you?" Why did you doubt yourself when I believed you could do it? And by the way, we always hear those words of Jesus in scolding tones. That's not necessarily so. It doesn't say that. Maybe Jesus was laughing while he said it. Maybe Jesus had a huge level of pride inwardly toward Peter for having the guts to at least step out and try. We don't know. As a hearer of this story, I'm kind of proud of Peter. I'm inspired by him. At least he has the guts to get out of the boat and try. They didn't take the opportunity. The ones that stayed behind were frozen. The other disciples didn't get out of the boat. Peter did. They didn't take the opportunity to actually do something amazing. They were frozen by their fear. Reasonable fear, mind you, but fear nonetheless, and frozen nonetheless. They deprived themselves of the opportunity to fail and to learn. They missed out on the opportunity to be able to reflect back on what was done and then to learn from it. Peter got that opportunity. And I suggest he probably grew in his faith and in his sense of his own humanity as a result. Maybe Jesus didn't have to say it, but he could have. He could have said, "You guys missed an opportunity. You could have walked on water like Peter and I, even if just for a moment, but you didn't." But maybe this is a good lesson for you. I hope. In fact, I know you'll have those opportunities. Give it a try next time. Yeah, maybe. We know those disciples went on and did amazing things. So even if we walk on water, even for a few seconds, it can be a victory. Taking crazy risks can become reference points for other things down the road. We can always remember and refer back. I remember that one time I did that amazing thing, and I risked it all. Maybe it didn't work out like I planned, but I felt so alive. And believe me, and then I got scared and I started to sink, but I didn't. I did it because someone believed in me. I did it because I believed in myself. I did it because I saw it demonstrated by someone I admire and respect. That's Peter's story. No one can ever take that event away from him. He can own it. Peter did it because someone believed in him and someone was there to lift him up, win, lose, or draw. Maybe someone has been Jesus for us. Maybe there's been a person or maybe an organization or an institution that was there to help us get back up and keep going. That entity, that presence, didn't let us down. Now, when I'm being honest with myself, based on my behavior and hearing my inner voice, I have to identify most of the time, I regret to say, with those other disciples who stayed in the boat. I like my safety. I like my comfort. Even if the boat is taking on water and I know the storm threatens to overtake, I am still inclined to stay in the boat. But even if we are naturally inclined to stay in a sinking boat, it's important to cherish those occasional moments when we have stepped out and when we have heard the call to come, do it, take the risk, see what happens. So, let's take a moment, maybe pause for just a bit, and consider this story. Consider your story. Consider this faith community's story. Consider our society's story. We're on a stormy sea sometimes. Are we ready to step out of the boat, even as the storms threaten?